Okay, I think we're live. So, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for being here today. So, we'll do a go around. I didn't do this last couple of times, but we'll do quick introductions and then a few quick announcements, and then turn it over to our guest teacher tonight, Ryushin Hart. So, first, I just want to say good evening, Ryushin, and good evening, Gyoke. Good evening, Sean. Good evening, Joe. Good evening, Marlon. And yeah, everybody who else is joining us on the live stream, if you are. Just want to do a couple of quick announcements, if I might. We have the talk this evening. Next week, next Tuesday, got the community meeting. Bum bum bum. So if you can make it, please do. And hopefully we'll get some good discussion about charting the path forward. So there's some information up on the website. And we'll see where everybody's at. We'll go through the survey that we did and kind of see where everybody's at and what we're going to do. This Saturday, I'm going to try and sit in front of the old Strathcona Farmers Market again. It's supposed to be -6, so we'll see. I do. It's good training for monastery, right? So, so if it ain't raining, if it ain't training, that's what they say in the army. So, so there it is. So you're welcome to join if you want to. Don't certainly not obligated. It was actually a really good experience, and caught some interest of people at the old Strathcona Farmers Market last week. So, and of course we'll do Club Zen on Saturday, regular chanting service on Sunday, and then community meeting on Tuesday. And then the following Saturday is our first in-person sit in Edmonton. So can only do 10 people, just trying to maintain the somewhat the restrictions. We are full the 13th, so 10 people are signed up. And then the week after, we're half full. So 5 people have signed up for the 20th, and that's at Clarity. And I suspect that a few more people will join in on that. So please, if you're watching this and you're not in the meeting today and you haven't signed up, there is space to come and sit with us on the 20th. So Lethbridge, for those, I know there'll be some people watching this afterwards. We're trying to find a temporary space. I got a very frosty reception when I suggested anything other than Nika Yuko Japanese Garden today. But don't worry, we're not giving up on the Japanese garden. We got to find something in the interim until they've got their new center, until the garden opens up for sitting. So got to line in a couple of things, and we'll talk about that too. Oh, good evening, Chair. Don't know what else. Just the usual line. I kind of felt bad about, I hate doing this, but we don't have a lot of overhead, but we do have a few things. We've got the Zoom license that we pay for. We like to give a little bit of dana to the teachers that come and give talks. And now we're doing in-person sits, which is by donation only. So, and there's a cost that comes along with that. So if you so desire, please feel free to donate. It's on the website. I moved it out of the way a little bit because I kind of felt like a televangelist a little bit on the website. It was kind of everywhere. Send us money, send us money. So it's in one spot. It says support Rocky Mountain Zen. If you are interested, I found out how to do recurring monthly payments. So through PayPal. So if you want to do like a subscription type of service for donation, that option is available in certain denominations, or feel free, please, to buy us a cup of coffee. Thank you to everybody that has bought cups of coffee and donated via PayPal. Lots of anonymous people, actually, so I don't even know who to thank properly. It's just anonymous people that have bought cups of coffee. So thank you to whomever you are. I think that's it. Does anybody else have anything anything? Okay. Well, we'll start off here. Just by way of introduction, Ryushin, I hope.
Thank you to everybody that has bought cups of coffee.
Right, I gotta turn that off. I found an intro for Ryushin. Hopefully, I got it from Brightway Zen, so hopefully it's up to date. So we'll do the intro. So welcome to Ryushin Hart. Osho is a Zen priest and social worker. Ryushin lived and trained for 9 years at Great Vow Zen Monastery, which I believe is in Oregon, if I'm not mistaken. With Chosen and Hogan Bay's Roshi. He was ordained in 2005 and completed Dharma transmission in 2019 with Tenku Raf Osho. And he completed his social work education through Boston University and provides mental health, addiction, and trauma counseling in Corvallis, Oregon. So without further ado, hope I got all that right. So I'll turn it over to you. Did you want to open with an opening verse, or did you? How would you like to?
Sure, we'll go with it. So,
Okay.
yeah. The Dharma, incomparably profound and infinitely subtle, is rarely encountered, even in hundreds of thousands of millions of ages. As we see it, hear it, receive and maintain it, may we completely realize the Tathagata's true meaning. So I see that as an invitation to all of us to pay attention. And I've started adding in this time of pandemic and climate collapse and political divides, just another layer of saying, if there's anybody out there who wants to help us, we're welcome to that. So you can welcome in any of the energies, the beings, the spirits, what have yous, that seem like they would be helpful, and I'll just call in, the elements of the mountains and the waters and rivers, of the sun, moon, wind, rain, snow, stars, fire, even technology, and of course, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, enlightened masters, and Dharma protectors. Please be with us, help us to see what we need to see, hear what we need to hear, to take from this time of community that which we most need to continue being resourced and being of service to the world. Okay, so I wanted to talk tonight a little bit about bodhicitta, and to get a temperature check of relationships with bodhicitta, how about if a signal of, I'm familiar with bodhicitta, I've heard of bodhicitta, I haven't heard of bodhicitta. So where are you out in the, okay. Okay, great, okay. Wonderful, that's very helpful. I'll have to do that more. Okay, so let's start with just some definition. So bodhicitta is a Sanskrit term, and it's composed of bodhi and citta. So bodhi translates roughly to awakening. Like Shakyamuni Buddha was enlightened under the Bodhi tree. That tree became the Bodhi tree after the Buddha became enlightened. They said, from now on, we will refer to this as the Bodhi tree. This is the tree of awakening. So there's awakening. And then citta can be seen as mind or heart, kind of somewhere in between. So you could say bodhicitta is the heart mind of awakening, or it is the heart mind that seeks the way. We all have bodhicitta, we all have a heart mind that seeks the way, even before we encounter Buddhism or Christianity or any spiritual teaching that calls to that, that is bigger than us. I heard one person talk about, like, everybody has challenges in their life, and if you think about grass that gets covered over for a bit, it'll get yellow and it'll die down. But if you take whatever is over it, the rock or covering off, it's gonna find its way back up and it's gonna move towards the sun. That's bodhicitta. It is that part within us that is always looking for the path, is always striving towards the path. And at the same time, it's so easy to get distracted in this world, right, by our wants and our needs and all the fiddly bits of life. So none of those are bad in themselves, right? Money is not necessarily bad. We need it. Love is not a bad thing. Being in, we were talking before about politics, there are systems in place that all these pieces are part of society. When they become the focus and we lose focus on the bodhicitta, that's when it becomes a problem. Right? And this is not new. This is what Shakyamuni Buddha was talking about 2,500 years ago. And when I came to practice 21 years ago, they were studying this book called The Way of the Bodhisattva by Shantideva. It's from the 8th century, Indian monk. And he literally wrote the book on bodhisattva. Sattva means a person. So a person who's seeking awakening. We'll talk about that. But one of the things that he said about bodhicitta is he said, it's so easy to lose track of bodhicitta. It's so easy to forget about it, that when it arises, it's like a flash of lightning that rends the night. And its glare shows all that the dark clouds had hid. There are those moments that we just realize, oh, there's more than just getting money and getting a partner and getting a house and getting this, that, and the other. Bodhicitta is what helps us to tune into that, or that is that we can tune into. Regardless of whether we're rich or poor, whether we're alone or in relationship, whether we're feeling powerful or powerless. Now, the term bodhicitta is particularly associated with bodhisattva, and so there's striving towards awakening. Bodhisattva is seen as a person who is striving for awakening, not just to get out of their own suffering, but because they recognize that our suffering is no different than anyone else here, than the spider on the wall, than that grass, the tree, that all beings that sense suffer, have the ability to suffer, or do suffer at times, and are moved by compassion to say, how could I become awakened? What would it even mean to become awakened and leave this world and leave everybody else behind? So they make this shift to say, the Bodhisattva makes a shift to say, let me awaken for the benefit of all beings. And if we're going to help all beings, we got to learn a lot. We've got have a lot of skills. We have to make a lot of mistakes. And so in this text, Shantideva talks about how we do that. And I love that he distinguishes that there is bodhicitta in intention, and then there's bodhicitta in action. And both are so important, right? Because in Buddhism, we talked about how everything starts with intention. Even your bowels get full and you have to go to the bathroom. There's some intention there, right? Every little thing that we do has intention to it. And so if we can bring in the intention of, may this be for the benefit of all beings. We have in the Zen tradition the Bodhisattva vows that I don't know if they are said here, but they're said in many Zen sanghas, and they say, sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them all. Dharma gates, the path towards enlightenment is endless. Every turn there's a Dharma gate, an opportunity to see more intimately the truth of reality. I vow to enter them all. And the Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. It's a setup for failure, right? It's the intention that we're setting, saying, may it be so. How would I live my life if I held this pure intention, if I set the bar higher than is possible in one lifetime? I recall one of my root teachers telling me, at the monastery, you get put into all sorts of positions that usually you don't have the skills for. Like early on, I was given I was put in charge of the kitchen. I was put the tenzo role, and I did not know how to cook really. I could make a dish or two, and I was told, "You're now the cook, and here are some dishes. Here are some cookbooks, and we will be having a retreat with 40-ish people coming in a couple weeks. Good luck." And I cried and I said, I can't do that. And one of my root teachers just said, for the time being, I'm going to believe in your capacity more than you're able to see right now. Until you can see for yourself, until you can prove yourself wrong enough times that you start to realize that your potential is way more than you think is possible. So that feels to me like the power of setting a big vow, a great vow, a vow that you can't even wrap your mind around how you're going to get from here to there. Vow. That's what bodhicitta asks of us, or those of us who lean into it. And intention is not enough, right? You can't say, I'll do the dishes at some point. At some point you have to do the dishes. The dishes will not do themselves. So then there's the bodhicitta in action. And equally important to say, not only will I I have an intention to go to the monastery, but then I have to go to the monastery, because I'll only learn so much by saying an intention. When I actually go, I learn so much more that I couldn't even prepare myself for. Right, so bodhicitta in intention, bodhicitta in action. And then there is this flexibility part. We set a goal to be bigger than we believe is even possible, even that we can wrap our minds around, to serve all sentient beings, even those that we might not like, and or have our particular disagreements with, maybe somewhere on the spectrum. And so what does that mean? So it's one of the pieces I will say it. I will use the book because I don't trust my memory in a context of giving a talk, but I do have bits of it memorized. So Shantideva says, this is part of his Bodhisattva vow. He says, for all those ailing in the world, until their every sickness has been healed, may I myself become the doctor, nurse, and medicine itself. Raining down a flood of food and drink, may I dispel the ills of thirst and famine. And in the ages marked by scarcity and want, may I myself appear as drink and sustenance. For sentient beings poor and destitute, may I become a treasure ever plentiful and lie before them, closely in their reach, a varied source of all that they might need. My body thus, and all my goods besides, and all my merits gained and to be gained, I give them all away, withholding nothing to bring about the benefit of beings. And then he goes on to say, once I've done that, once I've given my body away in service to all beings, let them kill and beat and slander it, or do to it whatever they desire. And though they treat it like a toy or make it the butt of every mockery, my body has been given up to them. There's no use now to make so much of it. And so let beings do to me whatever does not bring them injury. Whenever they catch sight of me, let this not fail to bring them benefit. What a vow. What a vow to say, my life is of service to the benefit of all. I read that. It stirs that bodhicitta in me. And I just want to take a minute just to breathe with that. If you feel any resonance with that, I invite you to just notice where you feel that aliveness in your body right here and right now. And I ask you to do that right now because, as we were talking about, as I was talking about before, we go off the cushion, we go out into the world, or even sometimes while we're on the cushion, perhaps, and all the minutiae of life arises. All the distractions arises. Oh, I have to remember to do this for work tomorrow. Oh, I have to remember to tell this person, why did they say that thing to me? I was trying to be nice. Whatever. The mind just goes hither, thither, and yon. And I find it really helpful to be tuned into where bodhicitta lives in my body. So when I remember, I know where I might find it again, where I increase my odds of finding it again. And for me, I find it does live in the body. It doesn't just live in the body, but I feel like there is an embodied part to it. Look through my notes and see if there's anything else that seems good to share before opening it up. The one other piece that I'd want to put in here is that Shantideva was a monk, and he was teaching to other monks and nuns, ordained people who were already, they were very bought into, this is my life. And so he can be a little bit on the austere side, a little bit on the give your whole life to the Dharma, even if it crushes your bones. Sometimes that's not the most helpful teaching for people out in the world. So I would just like to add, especially, for anybody here who's newer to Buddhism, newer to Zen Buddhism, that Buddhism is sometimes called the middle way. And it's called the middle way because it tries to strike a balance between how can we live a life that is as simple as possible, but not being ascetic or to the extent that we are like starving ourselves, that we are didn't, if we notice like that I am striving to do so many things for people that I'm not getting sleep, over time my energy is going to get depleted and I'm not going to be able to serve all beings. Right? And so how can I honor my body, honor my this precious gift that I've been given, right, for I don't know how long, um, while also being simple, right? And there is no right answer to that for one person, let alone the people that are here. It is really a deep question that each of us has to ask. So perhaps a better question than like reading the book and saying, oh, okay, Shantideva says, meditate for 20 hours a day and then sleep for 4. That's if I'm going to practice, it must be that. Instead saying, what would be a little bit of a stretch for me now that to be of service to someone? Can, even if that is not doing something, like I have a conflict with somebody and there's a thought that comes up to say something that some part of me knows is not going to go well. It's just going to be me kind of poking the bear. And instead I say, I'm going to hold that one in. Sometimes that's the challenge. Sometimes that's the little stretch that we do, right? So trying to avoid setting up these pedestals of what perfection of practice is, and really just asking ourselves on the daily basis or on a moment by moment basis, how can I practice most sincerely? What does bodhicitta look like? Turning towards serving others. And you see this, the last thing I say is you see this in the Zen context. We do this all the time. Like we sit down for meditation, zazen, and there's again, I don't know how the practice goes here, but there's a common teaching to say as we sit down, may this period of zazen be for the benefit of all beings. May any peace that I cultivate, may it be for the benefit of all. Or when we sit down to eat, we have part of our ritual is to take a morsel of food. Traditionally, it's about 7 grains of rice, and you take it from your bowl and you put it and you say, I will share this little piece of food just as a touchstone, just as a little reminder that this food is Buddha's food, that I'm taking it into my body to be of service, but I also offer just a little bit that it might benefit others. Okay, so I will pause there, and I would be very interested to hear thoughts, questions, reflections. What stirs in you?
So just feel free to unmute and join in.
Well, I'll jump in here. Ryushin, thank you very much, first of all, for your message. One of the things that I struggle with is anxiety, and my therapist has told me that anxiety really comes from a root belief that you can't handle the task that you've set for yourself. I don't know if that lands for you or not, but so give me your perspective on setting these stretch goals, right? Like, I'm going to save all beings. How do you deal? I don't know. Does that cause anxiety for you? I get anxiety thinking about making a phone call to somebody, much less like saving all beings. I'm just interested in your comments on that.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for that question. I am reminded of the way that I was taught to relate to the precepts, which are the ethical principles of Buddhism and Zen Buddhism. And I was taught that there were three different lenses, three different perspectives that you could hold for them. And the first one is the fundamental, so let's take one vow that says, I vow not to kill, but to cherish all life. Right? If I look into, start with that sincere vow that says, this is my sincere vow, and I will do my very, very best to fulfill it to the letter. Right? So I have to be really sincere about that. And then I have to be aware of this other lens that when I really look at what that means, to not kill but to cherish all life, and I look at my own life intimately, I am killing all the time, whether that's by being distracted by my phone, right, in a meeting, and I'm not giving my full attention. Like there's lots of different layers, and I don't want to spoil the wonderful, rich exploration of the precepts. But just to say, when I look closely, I am falling short of that vow every day, many, many times a day. So I need to hold the humility of, I am constantly failing. And then there's the third perspective, which is seen as the Buddha perspective, the absolute perspective, God's perspective, where all time exists simultaneously, all space exists simultaneously, words totally fall apart. In the vastness of that perspective, what does killing and being alive even mean? The words lose their relevance. And so the way that I was taught to relate to the precepts, and perhaps it may speak to how to hold this anxiety, is all of us tend to fall a little bit more in one of these three categories. Some people tend to be the, I will do this, I will be a fundamentalist, and I will do this to the letter. And that's just the camp that they tend to plant their flag in. Some people tend to plant their flag in, I'm always failing and I'm never making it and this is hard. And that's like where they settle themselves. And some people say, it doesn't make a difference because it's all one, right? And none of those three are the right way. The important thing is noticing, where do I plant my flag and can I bring in the antidotes? Right? So if anxiety is saying, I am always falling short, then is the antidote to say, actually everything is okay. Even this anxiety that I'm feeling in my body right here, this quivering, is okay. No problem. Right? Even this vow that I made that I'm falling short all the time, it's okay. How's that land for you?
It's an interesting perspective, and I wasn't aware of these three lenses that you look through. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that with me. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So you might experiment with that. You might experiment with, what would it look like if you, sometimes, because I wear glasses, I find it helpful to use the metaphor of glasses and imagine, okay, I'm taking off those. There's my anxiety glasses. I'm going to take those off for the moment, give myself a break. And now I'm going to pick up the glasses of Buddha vision, Buddha glasses. How does the world look through Buddha's eyes? So yeah, play around with it.
Thank you so much, Ryushin, for your talk. As a personal practice, Sangha here is aware of it, but I'm actually studying Norman Fisher's book, Training in Compassion. Mm-hmm. And so I've actually hit the verses on Tonglen and Zen. So obviously it's funny because today was the first attempt. I thought, is that something I can bring in here? And of course it was funny, my mind didn't go there. But what actually I wanted to ask you about is, one of the things that it talks about is having compassion for yourself and then having compassion for other people, and they tend to go hand in hand. But I wanted to ask, what is your thoughts on, is it always good to start with compassion for yourself before compassion for others, or is it just hand in hand?
I have always been trained that it is important to start with us, because it's hard, if not impossible, to give away something that you don't have. And if you're not able to have compassion for the own difficulties that you're experiencing, how in the world could we have compassion for others, right? And that said, it's a common refrain in conversations about compassion or the other divine abodes, the Brahma Viharas, which are loving kindness, sympathetic joy, the joy that comes from seeing other people be successful, and equanimity, which is this grounded and balanced state of mind regardless of what's going on, just rooted. That with each of these, we need to know it deeply in ourselves before we start offering it out. And and similarly, that it's encouraged to start offering it where it's easy, where the stretch is small. Okay, I can have compassion for my sister. I can have compassion for my dog. I can have compassion for my coworker who's dealing with the same challenging client that I was dealing with, and then move to people that I feel neutral towards, like the people on the street or the cashier, and then move towards people that are a little bit more challenging, until eventually, perhaps we have moments where we have compassion for all. But I do find that really helpful, and in part because at the start, it's often hardest to have the compassion for ourselves, or to see directing kindness towards ourselves as selfish, self-centered, which is not what it's about. That's kind of a Western American kind of twisting of the teaching. It's more, if you can connect with compassion, then you're more likely to be at peace and settled. And when you're more at peace and settled, your heart is more open. So those are some thoughts on compassion. A wonderful practice. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your talk, Ryushin. I wanted to ask you something, and I don't know, that might be a little bit off topic, but I just, every time I hear a talk about bodhicitta, or when I read about bodhicitta, one of the things that comes to mind for me is, so I come from the Catholic tradition myself, and one of the roots of Catholic spirituality, that's common to, certainly to the monastics and the mystics, which, and I don't know if it's really transferable or translatable directly as as their version of bodhicitta, but there's essentially three phases of awakening, if you will, within the Catholic tradition, right? So there's a John of the Cross and Saint Ignatius Loyola. I mean, very different spiritualities, but they come back to this sort of root process of awakening. So one is sort of the initial phase of excitement, that initial awakening. You're excited about what you're learning, you're excited about what you're doing, you want more, you want sensation. I love the feeling when I pray, I love the feeling when I meditate, I love the feeling, it's sensation. And then all of a sudden you go through what's called a dark night of the senses. So it's you hit this dry point where you're like, ugh, it's like chugging sand, and then you kind of emerge to the other side of it, and it's like it's kind of like a rocket going into space. You throw off the boosters, right? So the first booster gets released, and then you're into this new phase where you're like, well, I don't have the same sensations of wanting to awake, but I still want to go, but there's something a little bit more, less about sensation, more about throwing yourself in. And then you do that for a while. So the first is the purgative, and then this new phase is what they call the illuminative stage. And then all of a sudden, wham, you hit another one of these massive, dry, just soul-searing, sucking phases, which is called the dark night of the soul. And you just, everything just kind of drains, and you have no desire, to keep going on this path. But there's then all of a sudden that booster piece, separates, and you get into this, what they call the unitive phase. Anyway, that's a long way of asking the question. I've heard of different things, and I don't know if it was Shantideva or not, talking about the stream entering and sort of the phases of bodhicitta, but I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that, any experiences with that, if there's something similar.
Sure.
Yeah.
More familiar with stream entry associated with the Theravadan conceptualization of the path towards awakening. So slightly different, because Shantideva was in the Mahayana, in the which is the bucket, the basket of Buddhism that Zen and Vajrayana Tibetan style practices fall into. So can speak a little bit less to the stream entry into the linear progression that the Theravada school lays out. I mean, what I can say in terms of Shantideva and his practice of bodhicitta and explicating the path of the bodhisattva is that his third chapter is called, well, it's translated in this translation by the Padmakara translation group, which I really, it could just be that it was the first one that I encountered, but I have a very sweet spot in my heart for that particular translation. It's translated as commitment. And that's his Bodhisattva vow. The whole chapter is him saying, let me be whatever is needed in any moment to be of service to the world. And then the next chapter starts off with what I think of as Shantideva saying, oh no, what did I get myself into? Did I just really vow to save all sentient beings? Oh, can I take it back? I came to practice when I was 20 years old, and I came to a Zen center and I started chanting the Bodhisattva vows. And I was like, okay, so this is what we do. We come in, we sit zazen, and then we chant the Bodhisattva vows, and then they give us tea and a cookie and we go home. And it took me maybe 2 or 3 months to stop and realize, wait a second, what am I saying? I've just been committing myself for I don't know how long to save all sentient beings? What? So I think that all of us at a certain point, I am not a parent, but I can imagine that there's a daunting moment when you become a parent that says, oh, no, you got the wrong person. Like, this is too much. This is too much. I've certainly had jobs like that. I can't imagine, the time commitment on a job versus a child rearing is quite different. So I think that we all hit that spot, and we hit it, in our practice. We have days of practice, Zazen Kai. We have Sesshin, where we sit for multiple days, 5 days, 6 days, 7, 8, 9 days, depending. In some schools, they will do practice for an intensive practice for 3 months. And there is inevitably at least one time in the course of that where you say, no, get me out. Get me, I changed my mind. I'm not into this anymore. I give this back. I give it back. And and that is just, I don't know that there's anything wrong to that. I think that that's wonderful that St. John of the Cross puts that in there, because it is so inextractable from the spiritual path. You are stretching yourself.
It's key. It's
Yeah.
key. Yeah.
If I were to switch out and have my social worker hat on, I would say that we have a zone that is our comfort zone. And it's wonderful to have a comfort zone. It is important and crucial to have a comfort zone. And we don't grow in our comfort zone. We have to stretch out into our growth zone. And growth zone, by definition, is not comfort. It is stretching. It is growing. It is learning. Learning is uncomfortable because it means letting go of what we knew to be true in order to learn something new. I learned arithmetic, and then suddenly they're teaching me multiplication? What? So growth zone. And then there's also the panic zone, right? It's important to know our panic zone so we can minimize the amount that we're in panic. Because when we're in panic zone, we're not growing, we're not learning, by definition. So another way to look at is, okay, I'm in this dark, dry space. Can I, like when I've been in that sometimes, I've looked for other teachings from other monks and nuns and practitioners, regardless of the tradition, who are also struggling, as a reminder of it will change. All things are impermanent. They are the nature to change. And let me trust my vow, let me trust my practice, and let me just take the next breath, takes the next step, and trust that everything changes. So, don't know if I answered that question.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you very much. Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for a talk for my Canadian friends.
yeah, absolutely. It's always an honor to be offered the opportunity. It's so humbling, right? As you know, Gyoke Osho, to get up in front of a group of people and try to say anything meaningful about when we start off by saying the vast, the infinitely profound and incomparably profound and infinitely subtle Dharma. And now I'm going to try and put some words around it and talk for 25 minutes about it. Good luck. Yeah. In the Shuso Hosen ceremony, so the Trini, the head of the Zendo, is called the Shuso, and we were just at Gyoke Osho and I were just at a ceremony in Eugene, about an hour south of me, where the Shuso, at the end of their practice, they got up and they sat in front of the hall and they presented a koan, and then anyone could ask them a Dharma question and they had to respond instantly. And the phrase that I'm familiar with at the beginning, before they start answering questions, is, I feel like a mosquito trying to bite an iron bull. Like, good luck. And yet I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna do it anyway, right? There's bodhicitta there. Bodhisattva vow. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'm going to take the next step.
Wonderful. Thank you. Does anybody else have a question or a comment or anything? Our time is getting.
I just wanted to thank you for your talk. I don't really have any questions or anything. It was just nice to hear. I feel that, you know, I can sympathize with Marlon when it comes to anxiety. I used to have a lot of anxiety. And I found that throughout my own life, I've come to the realization that I've just been setting the bar too high. And that in itself has been creating a lot of anxiety in my life. And I've come to realize that, you know, in the world that we live in, full of distractions and you know, technology and our cell phones, it's easy to get lost. And so, you know, I just took a good look at my feelings through hard work and meditation. Probably it's been about a year and a half now. And I used to laugh at when people would say, well, it is what it is. Like, you know, I can't change it, but that's really what it is. I've come to that acceptance that, you know, life doesn't come with any promises. You're born on this earth, and it is what it is. And you do your best and try not to set the bar too high, but with small goals, small daily goals that, you know, with the intention of making the world a better place. And then when you're not creating those expectations, not only for other people, but for yourself, there's less disappointment, and you can accept things easier, and then you can move on from things easier. And it makes every little thing that happens in your life that's good stand out a little bit more, shine a little bit more, and you come to appreciate the little things more, because it's with everything, all the distractions and how they affect our dopamine levels and everything, we become desensitized to the little miracles in life. So just don't set the bar too high and appreciate the little things. That's what I would say to Marlon. And thank you again for your talk.
Thank you.
Very well said. Yeah, you can't save all sentient beings right at the same. Well, there's different ways to look at it. You could see saving all sentient beings, fulfilling your vow by picking up a piece of garbage when you see it, and saving somebody else from having to pick it up later. So sometimes it is the small things. So shall we end with a echo dedication?
Please.
Okay. So I'll do the formal and the less formal. The formal one, given we've been talking about Shantideva, will come from his dedication. So, and I learned a little melody that goes with it. So, for as long as space endures, and for as long as living beings remain, so then may I too abide to dispel the misery of the world. Many merit that has come from this time of Zazen, this time of coming together as community, of reflecting on the Dharma, of sharing wisdom and experiences. May it be a drop of water in the ocean of good deeds performed by all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, enlightened masters, Dharma protectors. May it radiate out to serve all beings in the realms of suffering, that they may be liberated from their pain and gain the awakening of the Buddhas. Thank you all.
Thank you again, Ryushin, for a wonderful talk, and thanks for taking time to answer questions. And thanks everybody for joining in and participating in the talk tonight too. Much appreciated.